Hi everyone, this is Jason Burak of Wall Street from Main Street. Welcome back to another Wall Street from Main Street podcast interview. Today's special guest is a first-time guest. He's got a really innovative company. He's a CEO and director of Blockstrain Technology Corp. Robert Galarza, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
So Robert, before we talk about your company, let's talk about the marijuana industry. So there's a lot of growth potential for marijuana and cannabis. What type of growth are we looking at in your opinion for the future?
I think that, and the numbers are all over the map, right? We're seeing, the 22 billion, 50 billion, 70 billion, 200 billion. I mean, you see these incredible numbers in terms of the growth curve of where this product is. What's exciting for us is that we're in the Canadian marketplace. In the Canadian marketplace, we definitely see the numbers, the demand curve being pretty big once this thing goes recreationally legal, probably towards the end of the year. And obviously, there's systems that have to be put into place for that. But that's what excites us about the Canadian market, to be perfectly honest. The interesting part and the real big question here is what happens when medical legalization happens in the United States, and what happens when countries like Mexico even come online, in Australia and Germany and all of Europe, and this thing becomes a real international export that can replace opiates in terms of in pain management, when you have expansion of CBD for overall pain management for non-psychoactive use, as well as, basically, when you look at what cannabis is starting to become, it is like a wine in some ways, but I like a good glass of whiskey myself, but alcohol is not necessarily that good for your body over a long period of time, right? So now all of a sudden, if there's an alternative that can be healthy for your body, and you can still have something that's recreationally for real relax and to take the edge off. For us, and I think for a lot of people, they just see an incredible upswing because culturally it's changing too. I mean, 86% of the U.S. I think I saw last wanted medical legalization to happen. So that culturally it's already changed. I think we're just needing to get around the curve of bureaucracy in order to get it fully legalized.
Yes, and the other thing for United States and legalization is the states need the tax revenues. But the thing that worries me, though, is with Jeff Sessions. So Jeff Sessions, who's the current attorney general, maybe Trump fires him soon. Hopefully he will fire him soon. But, I think Jeff Sessions is like Mr. Reefer Madness. I think he's watched that film over and over and over again. I think he's old enough to where he actually did watch it in high school. Sorry, go ahead.
You're right. Yeah. No, I was just going to say it. We were definitely, I think all of us in the industry were a little bit aghast when he was put in and some of the things he said, because they're old dogmatic principles that just don't really play up to reality, right? Like fact. But, the flip side is where I do have to give a little bit of credit. I read an article in Leafly recently that some of the crackdowns that have been coming from the DOJ have actually really been targeting the illegal growers in legal markets and really taking down the black market, which are also the same guys that are bringing fentanyl into the U.S. Right? So I got to give them credit for that stuff. I still don't really necessarily appreciate some of the rhetoric that comes out, but the flip side is that at least we have seen if we do still need to be able to eliminate a black market for the legal market to grow.
So there's the Canadian market the Canadian market is about to fully legalize. Trudeau's been talking about this for over a year now, I believe, and they've been setting that up. There's other marijuana experts I followed. I've interviewed a couple of them in the last year or so, and they actually think that Canadian companies have an advantage to American ones. Do you agree with that? And why do you think that would be the case?
Yeah, and I'll say 100%, having been from both markets and obviously being from the U.S. And the real reason has nothing to do with innovation. It has to do with infrastructure, right? So when you've got a system, federal system and a provincial system being established with rules of engagement and rules of play, it allows you to build your system being able to having to meet those particular demands. And all those demands are the same kind of demands that we implement in good manufacturing practices, right? So if you're a licensed producer right now growing medically and your products needing to be tested, which is basically what our business is focused on, is a verification and testing of product on the front end, through technology and allowing it to be expedited and sped up. When you're a producer on the front end doing this, all that really is doing good manufacturing practices in the grand scheme of things for retail, right? So we, because what we've seen in the U.S. is, unfortunately, a lot of pushback. You'll have companies that still use pesticides that, when combustible, convert to cyanide in your body, things like that. I mean, it's like you've got to be able to have some standardized rules to be able to allow a system to be able to put good product to patients and consumers. And I think that's the one thing that the Canadian market has. And they also have a real big keen eye on international exports. I'm telling you, there is a huge play going on up here in the Canadian market between licensed producers and other countries for Canada to help provide that product to the world. That's a big advantage in terms of where they're going to be able to put themselves on the map.
And the other major issue that American cannabis or American marijuana companies have, and my friend has worked 8 years in the marijuana industry in Colorado, so he's worked different jobs, and I interviewed him, I think, in November. For our listeners out there want to go back and listen to it. Didn't get a lot of views, but I thought it was very valuable insights. And he said the number one problem for American companies is, the federal regulations and dealing with the banks. So basically, if you're an American marijuana company, you cannot use, those large banks to deposit and do normal, business banking at. You have to use credit unions, and there's big cash transactions, so there's a lot of workarounds. And I think the Canadian companies, correct me if I'm wrong about this, the Canadian companies, the Canadian government makes it okay for them to deal with their large banks.
That's true, and you're there's in the Canadian markets there's really 4 big banks, just like in the U.S. Right? There's a handful of big banks that kind of run the entire country, very similar and parallel to what we see in the U.S. with the big 3, right? And what we're starting to see is that for years, even the licensed producers could be in the legal infrastructure of banking, but as some of the big boys weren't playing with them, we started to see that change. Right? Canopy, I think, did a huge underwritten deal through BMO, which is one of the large players up here, and then RBC is another one of the big banks that has been Royal Bank of Canada that I believe did another big deal for one of these finance deals through the licensed producers. So it's changing. There's some big business happening, and when you have companies like Canopy, which is a multi-billion-dollar valuation, and big investor is Constellation, which we all know Constellation is being a big alcohol company in the U.S., invests in their infrastructure. You get to see real banking take place and transact for real business. And the great part is, for the country, it boils down to taxation and oversight of those tax dollars, because that's, at the end of the day, wouldn't it be cool if the growth of this industry can help us rebuild the education system and rebuild the infrastructure that's currently hurting in the United States? If that can be supported through the growth of this industry, what a great benefit that can be.
So the largest marijuana market that's recently come online was California. Do you think then that Canadian companies, I don't know if Canadian companies have started putting a very large presence into California yet, but would you expect that in the near future, the Canopies and the Auroras and some of the other big name Canadian companies are going to start consolidating California or making big investments there to try to get that market share?
I see it. I definitely see it in terms of making sure that they're getting certain portions of their infrastructure placed within the California markets, because California, which is where I'm from originally and my partner's from, it's the 5th largest GDP in the world, right? It's this crazy state that somehow has a larger GDP than Great Britain, and I think there's a lot of excitement about what can be down there. The hard part is you also don't want to just dive into a market where it still needs to be kind of cleaned of, too many players and all the branding, and every celebrity's got now their own different Kush product and different vape line and different, at some point you've got to create some level of realistic mechanisms for commerce. And so I think the companies up here in Canada are dipping their toes in that infrastructure, but they're also being cautious not to just buy up a bunch of overinflated companies that are, making a vape line or have a line of edibles that, have a celebrity name attached to it. Does that really add up to good product and good sales at the end of the day from the consumers? That's the big question.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of those celebrities do those advertisements. I'll take your word for it, but I have seen Dennis Rodman wearing his Potcoin T-shirt, with the North Korea negotiation. So that's the one celebrity thing I've seen so far.
Yeah, we've that one always cracks me up, the Potcoin and mechanism in it. And again on the crypto side, we definitely are super excited about what blockchain can do and what digital currency can become for a global marketplace. But there's also got to be real use cases for it in order for it to really to be of value. So so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, if you start looking up cannabis celebrities, you'll be very entertained by all the different folks jumping on. I think Gwyneth Paltrow I saw was one recently that just signed a big deal in the cannabis sector. So it's kind of opening up across the board now.
So let's talk about blockchain technology since you brought it up and use cases. So if you talk to some Wall Street investors, there's some Wall Street traders and hedge fund managers that love Bitcoin and blockchain technology. There's others that absolutely hate it. They want to short it. They think it's going to zero. There's a common perception now, and this has been going around for over 8 months on Wall Street. Not everyone shares this view, but a large percentage of people on Wall Street too, and finance professionals, that there's no use cases for blockchain technology and Bitcoin after 10 years. So how would you respond to that?
I think it's a bit of a short-sighted thing. I mean, when you look at industries that are in the technology sector, right? Whether we look at traditional internet companies or traditional mobile companies, like and yes, you can say 10 years, but let's be realistic here. Like the blockchain and Bitcoin infrastructure and within the confines of business is probably less than really like 2 to 3 years old. Like we can say that Bitcoin's 10 years old, but it was so much in its infancy and living outside of the general ecosystem of business. You can't really even say that it's even been tested for use cases except over the past couple of years. And what we're finding is, regardless of what anyone's saying, is when you have companies like IBM and companies like FedEx and companies like Walmart building it within their infrastructure, I beg to differ that there is a very strong use case for it when it comes down to supply chain management and transactional based immutability. When you're looking at having fast voluminous amounts of records and transactions being able to be accessed, and being able to cut down on certain administrative burdens that come about with running a business. So I totally understand, hey, look, the guys that run shorts, they run shorts by being able to throw fear out there in the market on things that are a little bit nebulous. And, that's just the way that game works. But I think that in the long run, what you're going to see, and I know we saw this in the general internet industry, right? There were a lot of companies just didn't believe in it. And part of that was because the .com boom happened and crash, and then everyone shorted all the .com, and then all .coms in the web was a dirty business. But it just had to go through its learning cycles, its growing pains along the way. And I think that blockchain technology and whether that's always integrated with Bitcoin or not, is still kind of finding its way. And really, we're starting to see its uses happening, really only in the past couple of years, in my opinion.
So that's an interesting comparison, because after the technology bubble did burst, I mean, we still got good companies like Amazon, eBay, PayPal. I could name a long list of them. So despite the technology bubble popping, there were some really value-added, YouTube, Google, a lot of value-added companies that did come out of that. I think Amazon and Google were both launched while the technology bubble was actually crashing.
You're exactly right. And, it's like I was in an interview the other day, and we were chatting a little bit about this exact thing. And if you just add blockchain to the back or Bitcoin to the back of your business, and your, what was the Lemonade company that did their, the blockchain Lemonade stuff, and all of a sudden their stock shot up and then crashed. And, let's be realistic here about where the real use cases can exist. And in a lot of ways, what we've started to find is they exist around the supply chain sector, and especially regulated supply chain sector. So, where that level of information and access and trust is so necessary. And again, logistics is a big one, right? Because and visibility of supply chain is a big one, because you just want to know our whole business model is built around people just knowing and trusting what they're buying is what it says it is, right? So I understand the way the shorts market is, because hey, look, the ICO boom was exciting, but for any of us, those of us that kind of been around business for a while, we all looked at that and I was like, oh, that looks like security fraud in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of those companies are starting to suffer the wrath of the regulators now.
Yeah, and people don't get the difference between that large companies, like you said, like IBM. I was at the DC Blockchain Summit in March. I've been to a couple of these conferences, and that's the trade association, the Chamber of Digital Commerce's annual blockchain conference. And so there's presentations there from companies as small as startups innovating with blockchain technology to large technology companies like that everyone knows, like IBM and Microsoft. Vice presidents there talking about how they're testing out blockchain. They're working on integrating it over the next 10 or 15 years into a lot of their back-end systems to save themselves 90%. And to add to your point there, too, about large companies and supply chain management, IBM is running television commercials now, at least a couple of them. One of them is showing, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a TV commercial showing the non-conflict diamonds. So tracking the diamond all along the supply chain from when it was mined in a non-conflict zone, no blood diamonds, all the way through until it's bought at a retail jewelry store.
You're 100% correct, and we're excited because we love. My business partners worked with the Watson team before. We worked with the guys over at IBM. They're great potential partners for companies like ourselves and other companies out there that are doing innovative things because of the horsepower, what they can bring from an institutional and industry standpoint. What we do see is that what that message resonates or is trying to portray, and I think what is resonating is also a cultural change that's happening amongst consumers, right? We now want fair trade coffee. We now want non-conflict diamonds. We want these things, right? Whole Foods has proliferated because it's a non-GMO and organic, and you want to know that we can trust the products we're putting on our bodies, especially considering the epidemic that has been cancer over the number of years because of bad products we've been putting on our bodies, and we're starting to find that people are being cured of this stuff by just eating good organic vegetables and good organic food over a period of time. It's pretty crazy, and so for us, it's all about trust, right? And so our whole system is built around trying to create that visibility of product and inventory to consumers, empower them with that information, right? And that's the exciting part of what blockchain brings. Is just it brings that trust and that visibility and that oversight of what you're at the end of the day, you just want to be able to buy what you want, and know that you can trust it. That's the biggest thing.
Yes, and so at the DC Blockchain Summit in March, I saw some many examples of this, and there was presentations ranging from tracking luxury goods. So if you want to buy an authentic, if you're a woman and you're very fashionable and you want to buy an authentic handbag, making sure you don't buy a knockoff, tracking it with blockchain, or tracking from French grapes, making sure that they're grown in the right part of France and that they're turned into high-quality, authentic champagne rather than the knockoff, with knockoff grapes that are sparkling wine. So there was examples, a number of different examples of this, and that's, authenticity. And the consumer, I guess, for the technology integration, they're going to have to pay a premium for this. But it seems that there is a market for this because there is people who want quality over quantity at this point and are willing to pay a premium.
Yeah, I think part of it may even be a little bit culturally in terms of like the new generation of consumers who've been like we got like I was born in the late 70s, like 78, right? I turned 40 this year, and there was the number of television commercials that were thrown at me over my childhood, right? In terms of like what cereals I should eat and all of the big we were part of that big commercialism boom where you're like and it's just too much noise, and all you really want to be able to know is like I'll pay a premium. I just want to know what I'm getting is what I'm paying for, right? We want to be able to, I think in a lot of ways, like we want to be able to trust the companies that we do business with, and at least commercially, I think we're starting to see companies that do that are getting consumers dollars at the end of the day.
So is that what you like best about blockchain technology, or are there other things that you like more about blockchain technology? What I like is I like efficiency, right? I'm a big fan of efficiencies. I'm a big fan of eliminating redundancies. What I like about decentralized technology integrated in with centralized systems is it can expedite a whole lot of the data, right? It can expedite a whole lot of the processes. We also do love the transparency of certain portions of the record, but you can't just throw a decentralized system in everything and say it's just going to work for it all. There's a balance right now in terms of being able to work the system in between. I definitely am a huge fan of that. I also love where the concept of digital currency can come into play someday, because look, if you're doing business with third parties and you're all within a trusted network, we can build smart contracting solutions within that network that allow for automatic basically payments to be executed, and you don't have to chase net 30s and net 60s and chase cap or fiat currencies
through the infrastructure because it's just built within the mechanism. And maybe that goes back to my being, you used to be a lawyer, and I know the costs of like, what happens if you got a legal bill and you got to go chase this stuff. Like, at the end of the day, like I love the ability to create more efficient systems, because I think what it does, and some criticism of blockchain is that it takes away certain jobs and certain administrative processes along the way. But in truth, I think a lot of the people that are just pushing paper are better suited to innovate and be the best they can be. And if you inspire people to be innovative, I think society benefits from innovation and competition, in my opinion.
Well, plus that's a Luddite attitude, right? Because, using that same logic, then the automobile took away all those horse and buggy whip jobs, right? And isn't the economy, and aren't we all better off with automobiles?
Exactly.
So I mean, like, this is just how free markets and capitalism works with entrepreneurship and innovation. It's not easy, and it will, at least for the short term, put some people out of work, but people have to work hard and add skills, and they have to adapt to the new technologies in the economy. So, but before I ask you about questions, the cryptocurrencies are crashing right now, so everyone's talking about that. But, long term, I think I agree with you that the blockchain technology is definitely here to stay. We're seeing a lot of investments by Wall Street, a lot of investments by Silicon Valley companies, a lot of investments by large corporations into blockchain technology, not necessarily into cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are crashing. Some of them are probably going to go, the way of the dodo bird. But long term, I think blockchain technology is definitely here to stay. Now, before I ask you questions about your company, there's a free in-depth research report available for our listeners at pureblockchainwealth.com/first, FIRST. So for Blockstrain Technology Corp, Robert, what problems are you trying to solve with your company?
And so our company was built, and part of this comes from my partner's background in the cannabis sector was built around, looking at basically disparate systems out there and lack of visibility and verification of products. So with the time that he was at, a great example of this is like with Weed Maps, right? You're able to find your dispensaries, but finding the product in that dispensary is really tough, right? Being able to know that the inventory they have is exactly what they say it is, et cetera. So what we knew was one of the biggest challenges facing the industry is being able to say that, if I know what I'm buying, right? If the Blue Dream becomes blue is the hot name of the item, and then 50 other Blue Dreams pop up that are totally different, the consumers at the end of the day are left with, this confusion on product, right? So we looked at that, the front end of this industry, which is we believe is going to be, in the long term is going to maintain testing and maintain, GMP for basically product verification. And let's figure out a way to, like, if every batch of product in Canada needs to be tested, which is what's happening in the medical market, let's test it. Let's help them speed up the testing process. So automate the entire testing, the administrative parts for the producers, make it super easy and seamless for them to get the product into the labs, work with the labs to speed up their process. So we're helping empower more volume to go through the testing components, and then validate and verify the genetic framework of the products when they're on the front end, in order to create that immutable record. And then we have such, our supply chain background can empower that into a visibility solution to be able to give real, basically real, genome to sale visibility of those genetic materials and the testing, information all the way through the infrastructure. So for us, it was about, the Canadian marketplace. Number one goal for the government is providing a legal pipeline from legal seller to legal producer to legal buyer, right? It's like, which means, legal licensed producers or craft growers through distribution networks into the stores, and at the tail end being only purchased by adults who are allowed to have this product, right? And eliminating the black market. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to have a real verifiable trust system of that pipeline between the two. And so that's what we tackled, and what did we just tackle? That's the platform. And unlike a lot of companies that are talk about this, we're live. We are live in a month. We're working with WeedMD is one of the lead LPs that we're working with. We're working with a number of licensed producers as well to automate their systems. And so we're live in market in about 30 days, and we're excited to bring this to the forefront.
So if I'm a weed grower, this is a hypothetical, and I spent thousands of dollars on research and development, I hired very talented, sophisticated growers, and they mixed two strains in the lab, made a really good version of marijuana, and basically I want to protect that. I want to be able to sell that at a premium value added. Your technology would allow me to do that?
Yeah, what we allow you to do is protect the product on the very front end, right? And then obviously that's where the immutability record, the ledger transaction comes into play. And then what we would ideally help build is that pipeline between you, the grower, and let's say the licensed producer who's doing the distribution rights. And that's the one thing we're starting to see in the Canadian markets is we're going to need to create some sort of like distribution pipeline because a lot of the product that's currently in the dispensaries is actually from the black market. It may be grown legally, but it goes through an illegal distribution network to get to the dispensaries. So the government had basically is saying, look, we're going to control the retail. And so in order to, get that product, it's got to come through the licensed production market. So, but we also want to make sure there's trust, right? So what we need, if you have a licensed grower who has that product, and you currently do a deal with a licensed producer, a big company like a Canopy or Aurora, you need to be able to trust that they're not going to just say your starting materials died or your plants died on the way and then, and not pay you. You want to be able to say, hey, look, we've done a deal and the product's being tracked and the genetics are being sold and I'm being paid for the products that I've licensed to the producers. So this creates that. Hopefully, it'll continue to help build that trust mechanism between the craft market and the licensed production market, or the distribution network between especially when the big boys come into play. And like, let's say in the U.S., you got big pharma comes in. If you're a grower in California, and you make this amazing stuff up in Humboldt County, like that helps people, with their disease. You want to be able to trust it when you put it into a pipeline for distribution, right? And trust they're not going to just steal it from you.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really onto something very special here. I saw in your investors presentation that basically you're not going after just one part of the supply chain, that you have the potential to basically help every single company at all levels of the supply chain. Would you say that that's accurate then?
Yeah, I mean that's our mission. Our mission is to help expedite the entire process and to work with other companies that are doing this. We're an open API solution, an open widget solution. Like if you got a track and trace product that people are really digging and liking, let us our data help empower your solution, right? If you're creating an amazing ERP solution or a great point of sale system, like our data can work with yours and we can work together. That's the one thing that you got to have in this industry is like interconnectivity between all parts so we can work together to make a better system. So we really are, that's our big push is like, let's get everybody, together so we can make better systems. So that at the long and short of it, we want to help everybody. Tommy likes to say, we're Switzerland. We play nice with everybody.
Trade with everyone, make war with no one. I think that was either George Washington or Thomas Jefferson. I forget whose philosophy that was.
That's absolutely correct.
Well, talk about the management team. So beside you and yourself, talk about the background. So, hello?
Oh, yeah, I'm there. Sorry, it was my computer in the background.
I thought Skype had screwed us over again.
No, yeah. That's one of my alarms saying you got to go to a meeting in a little while. So.
Yeah, so just talk about the background of yourself and the other key management players.
Yeah, so myself again, my background was predominantly in the legal industry, as well as just marketing and media, is kind of my forte prior to getting into technology and into the cannabis industry around tech. So I come with kind of always that regulatory hat and that legal hat in the back of my mind, which is a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. And then my partner, Tommy Stevenson, his company Heated Details in Seattle has been doing amazing work for, Fortune 500 companies. And then obviously his time at Weed Maps, and the guys at Ghost Group was incredible within the cannabis sector. And then we got introduced to our chairman, Cameron Shell, whose company ICOX just did the Kodak coin, and they're really at the forefront of like where the regulatory ICO market could be going for the future, helping kind of build a mechanism to be able to really, create some good systems between capital markets and the blockchain and crypto markets as well, for legal landscape. And then on the board of directors as well, we've been blessed to have Michael Kraft, who is the chairman for WeedMD, who's able to work with us on what they're doing. WeedMD is amazing because they have a huge library of genetics So, not only are they a customer, an investor, a partner, but they look at us and they go, hey, we need you guys because we want to protect our genetics when we get them in the market.
So it doesn't say it on your website or in your investor presentation, but how much of the shares are owned by insiders such as yourself and other people? Because, I believe for a small company, that's really important that the insiders control a good amount of the shares.
Yeah, so our inside team is sitting at probably a little over half of the shares that are in the marketplace right now. I want to say the exact number. We've got the great part is when we built this thing, unlike a lot of tech startups that, you've got 2 or 3 guys that can, hold it all, right? We built a nice village of people that work together and to build the company and expedite the company and move it into the forefront faster and more efficiently. So that's a big thing for us. It was super exciting in terms of having the right partners. And then the nice thing too is we also know that most of those shares are in a nice long-term rolling escrow too. So none of us are going to be just like out there in the market going, hey, I've got shares or I'm tied up because I'm an officer or director. Like all the people that got involved in the kind of initial phase of this company are in this for the long haul.
That's really good. So what do you think are some of the near-term catalysts for the company that could potentially maybe move the stock price higher, and if you think the stock price is undervalued?
So, and right now I can tell you 100% the stock price is undervalued because we came out to the market and, it took us a long time. We went through a little run with the TSX, like getting them to understand what we're doing when you're blending cannabis and crypto. So getting that understanding down, we definitely went through a very long review, which you normally don't quite go through one as long as we did, which means that we're going to have some, paper out there in the marketplace trading and some people selling. And so the flip side is I know when you're on the front end of a technology curve, right? There's always that time frame in the beginning where people are like, well, we'll see what the adoption looks like. We'll see where this goes. I know from the communication we've been having with the licensed production market that the value proposition is there. It's there very clearly. We're seeing incredible growth with the laboratory partners that we've been chatting with, and what they've been doing has been really exciting. And then there is such a huge regulatory need for this as well, and we don't really target the government as a specific client because it's a longer tail in terms of the contracts. But the good thing is the conversation we have been having, people are picking up the value proposition pretty quickly. And I think when you have a business that's a high margin product like software is, and when you're solving a need that everyone knows is there, and you're doing it in a way where you're empowering companies with tools that make their efficiencies better, and you're a transactional model where you're not really a huge pain point where we're making people pay $50,000 a month to use our system or something crazy. Like we grow as your business grows. We think there's incredible scalability potential. And then this is at the end of the day, we're a software company. We've been written to convert to 52 languages tomorrow. We could go into any market in the world right now and help those producers grow their industry. And then, and then beyond cannabis, there's still a bigger picture potentially for visibility of other products in the agricultural supply chain sector as well. But we just see a problem here of need here. And we at the end of the day, I think entrepreneurs that grow businesses need to focus on why they're doing it rather than what it is they're doing. And so we've really focused on, what's our purpose, not what it is we're doing. And I think that's going to bode well for us in the long run.
And it says on your investors presentation that you have a good amount of companies testing your platform out already, right?
Yeah, we're currently obviously our lead partner is WeedMD, and that's public knowledge. So we've been developing in house with those guys, but we've also brought in some kind of foremost experts that get their hands dirty in some of the other producers to help us make sure that we're building these solutions in a way that can actually be functional in the field rather than just doing it at kind of the nebulous software development space that many of us in the tech space tend to develop from. Like you got to have guys in the industry that really play with the tools and know what's going on in day basis in order to build the right product.
Is there anything else I didn't ask you or that you wanted to talk about your company that I left out of the interview so far?
Yeah, no. I think the one thing we we like to tell people, especially in the States, is we are, we're a Canadian company. We're trading on the TSX right now under the symbol DNAX or DNAX.V, which we love the symbol. Unfortunately, there is a DNAX OTC company. I don't know what they do, but they're in Florida or something. That's not us. We will be on the OTC in about a month with another really cool ticker. We'll get something really awesome. But just keep an eye out on what we're doing. We got some really exciting news coming to the forefront. We're in this for the long haul. We are in this for the long-term growth. We aim to make material transactions instead of just fluff pieces in the news cycle as well. So, let's help build this industry grow, and we're definitely excited about where we're going.
You have a really interesting concept. I wish you guys the best of luck. I think you're onto something. You're combining two growth industries. You don't see that every day where technology and innovation with entrepreneurship is at the forefront of potentially two growth industries. Normally it's one and laser focus, and I think you guys have a real opportunity here, especially if the regulators are on board, because in the marijuana industry, the regulators can do the most harm.
That's the key. You got at the end of the day, you got to make those guys happy so that their constituents are happy with the decisions they make. Let's help them get a big win, and then we can all have a collective win together.
I don't know if you're going to be able to make Jeff Sessions happy, but hopefully the next guy will be happy.
Exactly. For now, if we can make Trudeau and the regulators up here happy, it's a start, right?
Yes. But Robert, I want to thank you again for your time today. For our listeners out there, there's a free in-depth research report available at pureblockchainwealth.com/first, FIRST. And Robert, if our listeners want to follow the progress of your company, how do they do so?
Yeah, you can go to our website at blockstrain.io, which also has a press section with all of the updated information, interviews and podcasts and stuff that we're doing. They can also follow us on Twitter at Blockstrain Tech is our handle there, as well as Facebook, and I think we've even got an Instagram page. We'll start doing some good photos of stuff, work in the field that we're doing with our production partners. Just keep an eye out for us. We got a lot of great stuff coming to the forefront, so we're definitely excited to be a part of this community.
It's a very interesting story, and we'll see the other customers you guys get, because you're going after some of the really big ones in the marijuana industry.
100%.
Okay, great, Robert. Well, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Please like this video, share it with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the Wall Street for Main Street YouTube channel if you have not already done so. Thanks for helping Wall Street for Main Street pass the 20,000 YouTube channel subscriber milestone despite YouTube censorship. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to 30,000 or even 40,000 YouTube channel subscribers quickly if YouTube doesn't shut down this channel. If YouTube does shut down this channel, remember to also sign up for the Wall Street for Main Street email list that's on the wallstreetformainstreet.com website, and will tell you where the videos are going to be uploaded instead of YouTube. Also, if you really like the content and you decide that you want to give a one-time donation, you can go to the wallstreetformainstreet.com website, where there's different options for you to do so. Or you can become a Patreon contributor. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to providing my loyal listeners with some of the best information, analysis, and financial education available out there, free or paid, as I work to grow the podcast and also get my educational technology company funded.